Okay, so if you listen to mainstream media right now, this is all you hear. Tesla is basically going bankrupt. The company is falling apart. The cars are falling apart. So what you got to do is sell your Tesla stock, sell your Tesla car, move to a different country, better even, a different continent, change your name so that nobody ever finds out that you ever owned a Tesla car and or the stock. This is literally all you hear right now. And I find it really amusing because, Tesla FUD has always been around. But this is like new level stuff that we haven't seen in a long time. So I'm here to basically put some sunlight on this and see if it melts or not. Because in my opinion, data don't lie. Because data don't have a skin in the game. So let's look at some data, okay? So Tesla just delivered 405,000 vehicles in the last quarter of 2022. Now, this was short of estimates by analysts, by about 13,000 cars. The estimates were 418,000, so they missed by about 13,000 cars. And of course, immediately the festival has started. All the cockroaches coming out in the holes, basically celebrating Tesla's failure. Only 405,000 vehicles. Yay! Tesla is losing demand. The growth story is over. Even some people who I actually respect have caught on to this narrative, unfortunately. But, I can coexist with people I don't agree with. I mean, I'm okay with that. That's some of the message I'm trying to kind of convey on this channel also. It's okay to coexist and respect somebody you don't agree with. So I don't disrespect people for falling for this narrative, but I urge you to listen to what I have to say in this video, even if you define yourself as a Tesla hater and Elon Musk hater as well, whatever that may be. But please listen to what I got to say in this video, because the data absolutely will debunk everything you hear in mainstream media right now. Look, it's true that Tesla missed estimates, for sure. But, let's look at what's going on with the rest of the industry. And I've made this point before, but it's so powerful, I feel I have to bring it up again just to start this discussion. And I have way more data points for you. This is just the first step, the intro, if you may. So the rest of the industry, the US auto industry, have shrunk by 8% this year. So the entire US auto industry is selling 8% less car in 2022 than it did in 2021, while Tesla increased their sales by over 40%. So that, there and then, should be the end of the discussion, but I'm just getting warmed up. Now, if you look at individual performances, you're not going to be happy to hear what I got to say. Ford is down 2% on sales this year. GM is up 3%. They're leading the industry, according to President Biden. So they're up by 3%. Toyota is down, 10%? VW is down 14%. So looking at the industry in general, everybody's hurting. But Tesla is basically selling 40+% more. And somehow that's a problem? I mean, even if you look at the industry in general, during the time when Tesla went from 300,000 vehicles a year to 1.3 million vehicles a year, during the same time, the US auto industry basically shrunk. They shrunk by 35%. That's not even the laughing matter. So the US auto industry is in trouble. You can look at the F-150 sales. By the way, shout out to my friend Farzad on Twitter, who brings all this information on Twitter for you. Go check him out. Follow him right now. But he just showed you that, sales of F-150 have pretty much halved over the past few years. I mean, the U.S. auto industry is suffering, and rightfully so, because they're getting beat by everybody else, Tesla included, by the way. Now, look, let's look at this whole argument. The main fight about Tesla over the past few years has always been this argument: the competition is coming. The competition is coming. Every year we hear about how finally this year the Germans are coming. The competition is coming. I've been hearing this I would say since 2013. Since 2013, every year I sit in the room with smart people, extremely smart people, sometimes even smart and rich people, and I hear this argument how Tesla cannot survive once legacy auto really goes into this game. I've been hearing this for the past 8 years, and somehow every year that hasn't happened yet, even though the money is there on the table. It's there for the taking. Take it from Tesla. It's like taking candy from a baby. Well, that baby can punch back, and it punches really hard. Because look, legacy auto, with all due respect, and I have respect for legacy auto, they just cannot compete with Tesla at scale. Now, the U.S. auto industry, we'll talk about that in a second, is in a whole new shit sandwich of its own it has to solve before it even considers competing with Tesla. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you look at around the world, there's only two main competitors that can actually run with Tesla. One is VW, and they just basically fired the CEO who made it happen. They let Herbert Diess go, even though he's the one who put them on second place. And more globally, if you look, like the only real competitor for Tesla would be BYD, the Chinese company that Warren Buffett is invested in, and I have a lot on that as well. Warren Buffett is actually liquidating his position and getting out of BYD, even though BYD is selling terrific, 150% increase in sales year over year. So BYD has its problems, VW have their problems, the US auto industry have their problems. While they're trying to figure out how to handle this, Tesla is basically creating more space between themselves and the second and the third place. And I'll give you numbers to prove this. I'm not just, pulling this out of my butt. Now look, with all the respect to US auto legacy, they just cannot make electric vehicles at scale like that. It's impossible. Look at the numbers. The GM Lyric, which you saw Mr. President Biden drive in and, do some PR stunts. I mean, they sold 36 units in Q3 of 2022. 36 units, my guy. Even the Mach-E, which is not a bad car. I mean, it's not a Tesla Model 3. It's not even the Tesla. It's a Mach-E. It's a nice electric first attempt by Ford. I don't hate on it. They sold about 30,000 cars this year. 30,000 cars. That's as much as Tesla sold the Model S. You know how much Tesla sold Model 3 and Y this year? In the US, about 350,000. So Tesla is outselling Ford by a multitude of 10. And that's just with the 3 and the Y, not including the S. So there's just not enough there in this equation for legacy auto to make any sort of a run for this. Look, the problem with going globally, you can see that this trend is not just a US thing, because people tend to say, well, Tom, this is just the US. Go around the world and see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in other countries. And I have the data right in front of me. So you heard the data about Norway. Everybody knows about how Tesla is the best-selling car in Norway. But I mean, it's not just Norway. In 28 years, and shout out to Farzad for bringing this to my attention, the best-selling mid-size sedan in Australia was the Toyota Camry. And rightfully so. It's a great car. This year in 2022, or rather last year in 2022, this title was taken from it by the Tesla Model 3. The Model 3 is now the best-selling mid-size sedan in Australia. And the first time since 28 years, it's not the Camry. By the way, if you look at UK, for example, you're going to be shocked because the two best-selling cars is the Model 3 and the Model Y, with about 5 times more sales than the third place in the UK. And with legacy auto pretty much unable to compete with Tesla at this point, except maybe for VW that can make a little bit of noise. Toyota has pretty much given up. The rest of them, don't get me started. Who's going to compete with Tesla? Well, the Chinese might, but then you look at the Chinese auto industry and then you see a huge problem. NIO is primarily a Chinese brand, but they're going for battery swapping, a technology that failed miserably many years ago and is just not sustainable. There's nowhere near as efficient as a supercharger network, which, by the way, Tesla is the only one who has one. So NIO at this point is a luxury brand, mainly Chinese-oriented. BYD, the company I mentioned earlier, actually has a shot. It's a terrific company, hands down the best competitor for Tesla, completely vertically integrated, and they're growing like crazy, 150% more sales from last year to this year. They're definitely breathing down Tesla's neck. And that is why Warren Buffett held over 20% in this stock, in BYD. Why? Because he understood the same things I'm saying. It's a great company. But get this, over the past 6 months, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway reduced their stake in BYD by 32%. They went down from 20.5% to 13.9% in just 6 months. Now, why would you sell out of a great company like BYD? What? Warren Buffett loves BYD. Warren Buffett loves China. Why would he do that? Why? Well, Warren Buffett is actually implementing a technique I call the silent fart. You know, when you want to fart in company and you don't want people to know it's you, so you release it quietly, systematically, so nobody picks up that you were the one who farted. This is the quiet fart selling strategy. He wants to sell out quietly, not alarming the people who are in love with Chinese stocks so that they stay in and the price don't crash. I don't know how successful it's going to be or not, but I mean, BYD is just located in a problematic country. How problematic? Well, let's just look at what happened today. Today, on Monday. Today, we had an announcement from the head of the Banking and Insurance Regulation Authority in China that they're done, breathing down the necks of technological companies. They're finished with the witch hunt, whatever that may be. It's the 57th time, much like Michael Burry, that they've announced the same thing. And again, some people seem to fall for it. Now, they've announced this today because they've convinced Jack Ma to give up his control in Ant. And I love how they define it, but here's what happened. So Jack Ma actually used to control about 53.5% of Ant. and slowly became a much bigger thing that anybody had imagined. It's kind of the Chinese equivalent of PayPal, but it ballooned to something much bigger than this, almost like an alternative paying kind of environment, microsystem, microcosmos, basically taking control out of the Chinese government with regards to how people pay between each other, the loans, everything. So once the currency controls have started to shake in China and Jack Ma started to dabble too much in what the Chinese government considers taboo, they pretty much made him disappear for a while. They brought him back. You haven't heard him speaks. You haven't heard him speak once since there. I don't know what's going on with me. I can't talk. But basically, since they made him disappear and then he reappeared, he's been very, very silent. And when people are awfully silent, that's usually a case that they're terrified or they basically know that worse things will come if they actually open their mouth. Now, look what happened today. Today it got announced that Jack Ma has agreed to give up his 53% control in Ant Group, which was supposed to IPO at a valuation of $300 billion in 2020. And by the way, an IPO that was canceled by the Chinese government because they didn't like Jack Ma for no other reason. So that same Ant Group, finally Jack Ma has agreed to give up his control in the company, and now he will be holding a nice little 6% instead of his 53%. And basically, the government has convinced him. I think they made some really strong arguments there. But basically, look at what they're doing. They gave him the 6%, so he has money and, he's taken care of, but he basically lost his company. That's how it works in China. That's what happens when you operate in a totalitarian, Ponzi scheming, fake economy, warmongering country that has no financial controls and is basically a totalitarian, authoritarian government that can decide whatever they want. Now, that's not a healthy environment for any company. And as far as BYD goes, it's a great company, but who knows? Tomorrow they may piss off somebody in the Chinese government, and that may happen to them. Again, even Tesla, who really pissed off President Biden, I don't know why he's so upset with Tesla to the point he couldn't even say the name. Tesla is not, in the same situation. The U.S. government right now really doesn't like Tesla, and yet, they operate freely. Elon Musk is not in prison. They sell 40% more cars this year than last year. So to me, BYD is just in an unfortunate situation. Bad geography in China. They will never be able to compete, unfortunately. So before you listen to all this FUD about, Tesla losing demand and, falling off a cliff or coming apart at the seams, look at what's going on in the rest of the world. And yes, I understand Tesla has a lot of issues in China. I mean, who doesn't? But if you look at the rest of the world, North America, Europe, anywhere else, Tesla is absolutely killing it. In the US, they're the best-selling electric vehicle by miles. 350,000 units just from 3 and Y, 370 if you add the Model S. And you know what? Yes, I know the stock market can be a little bit crazy, and who knows, the stock price might be kind of sideways for the next couple of years. I don't know. I don't determine the stock price. I can only focus on the company. I like the company. I like what they're doing. They're en route to doing 2 million cars a year, I believe, in about 18 months. And at this point, that's all I need. The stock price might keep the stock down. The macro might be horrible. Yes, Tesla might be trading sideways for a while. But as a long-term investor, it's just not something I'm concerned about. And if you are, and you're trying to kind of medium trade your way into this market, that's fine. Tesla isn't the stock for you. I get it. But for long-term investors who are in love with what the company is doing as far as fundamentals, as far as their margins, which are the best in the business. I mean, their margins, even after the discounts, they're still going to be double than anybody else in the business, including Toyota, who makes 10 times more cars than them, has no debt, unlike the $500 trillion of combined debt of all the global automakers. By the way, 200 of that, 200 billion is just GM and Ford. Imagine that. So, I mean, no debt, great margins, absolute terrific cars. Yes, there's quality issues in Tesla cars. Which cars does not have quality issues? I mean, give me a break. They're not the perfect car. I've never said they are. But they're a damn good solution for somebody who wants an electric vehicle, a supercharger network, great software, and an ability to actually have an ecosystem to operate in and have a product, a complete product. Now, some people may not like what I say, and that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. I hope you can coexist with me as a viewer and hopefully as a subscriber, even if you don't agree with my views. That's the whole point I'm trying to make here. Because if you don't agree with me, that's still fine with me. The only thing I will tolerate here on this channel is douchebags. If somebody is being a douchebag, disrespectful, is getting blocked, but everybody else, feel free to disagree with me. See you in the next video.